don't already know, we're going to talk about AI, data sets, and where bias and missing representation fits into this whole conversation. And over the next 90 minutes, we'll chat a little, we'll learn a little, we'll also share what we know about AI and data sets and play a little with this extremely black box technology, which has historically been, infamous for erasing certain experiences and representations, right? Thanks, DEF, for this opportunity to share about our work that we do as well. As you've mentioned, we both from this organization called Point of View, which is based out of Mumbai, works across India to build safe and equal digital spaces for all genders, primarily. And today's technical session will be broken up into 4 segments, including a brief orientation on how AI works, what the building blocks of AI are, and then we'll deep dive into making feminist data sets of our own. Like I said, I'm sure many of you in the room are familiar with the basics. I'll just go over that again, just to make sure everybody in the room is on the same page. So indulge us, bear with us, and we'll try to make it as playful and, lots of fun exercises to do. And for the first slide, for the first sort of activity, I want you to think about this question that's on your screen. And if you can just raise your hand and share one word that comes to, or it could be a bunch of words that come to mind when you think of AI. So it can be, like I said, a feeling. It can be a feature that you use every day, an app you use every day, something you are really impressed by, like the speed, efficiency, whatever it is. Or if it could also be a concern or a challenge that you face with using AI, as you know it. So there's no wrong answers. And if anyone wants to respond, just to start the conversation off, we'd really love that. Love to hear that.
Smart assistant.
Smart assistant, okay. What else? I'm sure you're all using ChatGPT. Come on, out with it. I'm sure you have thoughts. So, yeah. Yes, cheating. Cheating, amazing. You must be a professor or a teacher.
I would like to use a Hindi word, it's jugaad.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So for those who are unfamiliar with the word, it's the act, often considered a very political act of disobedience, of making do with what you have if the resources are not available to you. Do you want to elaborate on that? Why you said jugaad? It's a very interesting answer. And why did you use that for ChatGPT? AI?
Again, when we, as a student, I'm a student of sociology, so we get mostly students when we think of AI, it's ChatGPT, and last moment assignments, deadlines, just one click and it's ChatGPT, and everything is out there. So it's jugaad. It's a shortcut.
Shortcut, yes, yeah. Of course. I can just add to that. Co-opting a little bit of your time to just say that, a lot of people, a lot of us in this room, also perhaps English might not be our native language, but we might need to write a very crisp and grammatically correct email. So in that case, I think using ChatGPT is completely okay. So yeah, jugaad for sure. Anyone else? One more answer and then we'll move on.
Steven Spielberg's movie.
Which one?
AI, Artificial Intelligence.
Oh, okay, amazing. Okay, you want to talk a little bit about it? Did it portray AI as a good or a bad or like a...
So I would say that that was really an interesting movie, and it was, I think, released in around 2000, I think 98, 99 or something. There's Jude Law in it, who is playing an AI again, a male sex worker who happens to be an AI. And that's based in a future, which I think I would recommend people to watch it because it shows a lot of aspects to AI, which probably we are now in a very early generation, right? So how we progress with it in different generations, and the movie has sort of categorized AI. We are living in a world where AI has, fertility has vanished, and AI is used to reproduce for humans. And I think it's a very thoughtful experiment.
Well, that's a very interesting train of thought to think of, just transferring reproductive labor onto machines. That's been like a whole genre in itself. So thank you for bringing that up. Very interesting. The next activity, again, I'll just share a list of technologies on screen, and I want you to tell me which of them are AI driven or use AI in its functioning or any feature, and which one's not. Because I'll tell you why we're doing this. we often come across people in our communities when we work with them who are often confused about what exactly AI is, because it's become a buzzword, let's be honest, to mean anything from a virtual assistant to a deepfake generator, right? But to try and understand exactly what it is that makes a technology AI driven, if you could just look at some of these technologies on screen, we've tried to be very comprehensive of everybody's experiences and backgrounds as possible. So if you're a film editor, you will recognize, stuff like Sora or Adobe Firefly. I personally use Podcastle a lot, which magically cleans any audio I record. And there are lots of very localized policing systems that we've also put on this slide here. And if you're based in Delhi or Hyderabad, you might be familiar with some of them, of police or the state using some of these automated systems in their everyday sort of work. So while you take your time and see some of these tech on screen, would one of you want to say which one is perhaps not AI, or one that is AI that you use every day, or you have used in your work or personal life? You can just raise your hand and respond. And just say the name of the tech and say if it's AI or not. Yeah. Of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
Canva is not AI, but it does have an AI.
Thank you so much. Yes. So there's a reason I put Facebook, the platform, and then there's another which says Facebook recommendation algorithm, which are two different things, right? The platform is not AI, but the recommendation algorithm, which gives you one shot or one reel after the other, even on Instagram or YouTube, all of these recommendation algorithms are powered by AI. And similarly, Canva has that mid-journey or DALL-E type feature, which helps you auto-generate images that you need for your craft or design that you're making. So Canva itself is not AI, but it has that AI-driven feature. Who here has heard of, let's say, Trinetra? Is anyone from Uttar Pradesh here? No? Or from Hyderabad here, based here? You are? So you might be aware of the infamousness of Hyderabad being the most surveilled city in the world. I'm sure you have. You know that already. Yes, it is. So every traffic junction that you see is powered by number plate recognition systems, or what's the other one? So again, intelligent traffic management systems. So these are all actual real life applications of AI, and I can share resources where you can read up about how it's very increasingly being co-opted into our daily sort of lives without us even sometimes noticing or taking stock of it. Again, like one question: Arogya Setu, AI or not AI? It is, right? It has AI-driven features where it's trying to show you a hotspot, generate. No? Yeah? Okay. Some of these are blurred lines. I just want to say that you'll never know some tech that you use suddenly have co-opted a new AI feature. Alright? So if we move on, we'll see how the basic definition of AI ultimately boils down to it being a computer program that has been fed a lot of data to execute a number of functions, right? And these functions could be recognizing patterns, solving problems, making decisions, and predictions. So there's predictive policing. The policing apps are trying to look at features, look at profile you, and tell you, okay, is this person capable of committing a crime, which is like very unethical. But so it has a bunch of useful and dangerous jobs. And the only difference between that and a human is that it's very fast and super efficient, although that word is very contentious, right? What's efficient and what's ethical? And the third thing is that, like I said, without us realizing it, it is present in a lot of systems that affect our everyday lives, including employment, healthcare, education, law, enforcement. I'll give you one example of how the welfare state that we're trying to build uses AI in its workings.
It will actually have an automated database like the Aadhaar database, for instance, which will tell the government if you're eligible for a loan or any welfare that comes down from the government, which is how it's incorporated in our daily lives. And like we discussed in the previous slide with all the technologies, these are some of the commonly used forms of AI today. And we'll see that text and image generation tools are something we use as ChatGPT or Midjourney. Search and recommendation engines, which is, like, I think, in my opinion, the most commonly used form of AI every day, and we are actually going to get into that when Vaishali takes over as well. So Google search engines, Bing search engines, all of them are powered by AI. Virtual assistants, of course, Alexa, Siri, Cortana, all of that. And then there's machine translation algorithms. So Google Translate uses a large language model, which is also AI. And then there's facial recognition systems, which say DG Yatra uses nowadays whenever you're taking a flight, right? Trying to enter a report. This, I think, is the core question bringing us together today, because we're trying to make sure that everybody understands how humans are as important in the process of AI, or making AI, because often it seems like magic, disembodied, and as if a machine's doing all the work without any human intervention, right? Like, AI is touted as one of the most efficient, incorruptible, completely accurate form of getting something done, as opposed to a human who's prone to errors. But that's not true, right? Because humans are powering AI in a way that's called a data annotation process. So data annotation is essentially when you're training unstructured data, so a large amount of data is being trained by humans like you and me. If you see the picture on the left, the top right picture, there's this person who's telling, okay, this is how you label a banana, this is how you label a plant, and you can see the bounding boxes as well, right? So this is human labor being performed out of call centers like those in this city, those in Gurgaon, those in Bangalore, and has immense human and mental health costs. We're not going to get into that, but I just want you to acknowledge, be cognizant of the fact that the training of AI, which seems like a magic box, is done very much by humans. Okay, and one process of doing that is data annotation, which brings us to data sets, right? What exactly is the person training? If you look at again at the picture on the right, this is face images from a database that has been used by AI to train AI, right? So what a data set really means is collections of related data. So there has to be some sort of connection among all the images, right? So in this case, these are all human faces in the image on the screen. So this is the kind of data that's put together to sort of create a data set, and that's also very, very human-led. There's one line which I've put on the screen, which will stay with me for a long time. It's a very powerful line, which says every AI generated image, so everything that you create, one image that you create on ChatGPT, for instance, is an infographic about the data set, which essentially means that, data sets are endowed with your political views, your histories, and your worldview. So if you are the data annotator, your biases, your likes and dislikes will percolate into how you're training AI, which is how bias in AI takes place, right? I'll give you one example. In this image, can you see this? So here, there's 4 annotators who have annotated this one image. Do you want me to zoom in a little?
Yes, please.
Is this okay? So you'll see that the first person's put this bounding box around the woman and said a person. But immediately the second person has made a judgmental call, right? It's a personal judgment that's being exercised here. They have said it's a parent. Just because she's doing some house chores, washing clothes, which is a bias. Do you understand that? And then there's another person. This is where it gets really interesting and our class differences start to show. They have actually called her hairstyle boho, bohemian. And their style, their clothes is basic or summer casual. And even though this structure, this is the most interesting part. This may be a feature that is there in urban urban contexts in our houses in urban areas also, right? This kind of a jagged concrete structure, they have called it rustic. This might be a person coming from privilege who thinks that this kind of structure can only occur in a rustic setting. So this is just to show you that depending on who's annotating the data, this person and this person is very important, and their worldviews will percolate into the data sets that's being used to train AI. There's just one last thing I'll share with you all, which will actually ground and anchor the rest of our meeting today, is the one about prompts. So just like annotations are used to train data from the backend, we are all training AI as well through prompts. So whenever you search something on Google, or whenever you enter something on Midjourney or ChatGPT and then constantly tweak it, right? We constantly tweak it to get the answers we are trying to get, the desired results. We are all training AI to be better, to be more efficient, to do that in a less amount of time next time somebody searches the same thing. So it's a very nice image I thought I'd share with you. And please do go through this website called, please note it down, it's called Better Images of AI. And it has a host of, images that tell you what AI really is about, rather than, the disembodied robotic image that comes every time you read an article about AI. That's not AI, right? There is a very human component to AI. So this shows you how, prompts are the interactions between humans and technology that support the inner workings and creation of AI, generation of AI. With that, I'll hand over to Vaishali, who will lead you into a small prompting exercise where we'll learn how to create more representative and less biased data sets. Thank you.
Can everyone hear me? Or do I need to use a mic? Audible? Oh. Okay, so first question, how is everybody feeling? Like after you Pratna took you through all these concepts and understanding. So are you do you have any questions inside you thinking something? Did it remind you of something? Or are you connecting the dots? So what's going on in the room right now? Okay, just one thing. Since we are moving to the second part and I have a ground rule for every workshop or every interaction, there is no right answers, there is no wrong answers. The reason all of us are here is to actually bring representation, to bring different perspectives, and as much as many, I would say, devil's advocate if we can all be. So please feel free to share whatever is coming into your mind, and even if it's like unformed sentence, unformed thought, anything.
Yeah. I feel like I'm learning a lot. I think you hear about bias data sets and responsible AI, but you don't really know exactly how that happens. And so I think the example of, okay, this is labeled by this person, it's called something different, just really kind of fills in a lot of gaps.
Thank you so much. Anyone else?
So I have trained many data sets before. But this bias thing, I knew bias exists, but I never thought while annotating data. Till now, I never thought, this can be different for women or some other gender or the sex. I never thought in that. So this thing I remember from this question.
Can you give us some example of the process?
For example, I was training a data set for some medical, it was like some cancer data set. So in that, now I remember that I didn't consider the mammogram, I don't know the proper word, after 40 minutes. So for the breast cancer.
Yeah.
I don't even neglect it.
Mammogram.
Yeah, mammogram. Yeah, that is what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So now I remember. I should have asked another girl or someone to help me there.
That's a very important example. Anyone else? Yeah.
I'm a map maker at the job, and it just feels a lot like, oh, yet again, this is something we talk about with data, this is something we talk about with maps. There's just a lot of expectations of objectivity, which makes bias a problem, I feel like, and that's something that's like, oh yes, one more thing.
Right. That's again. Thank you so much for the contribution. Anyone else? Like any observation, any thought, any
I was just thinking about how the boxes are drawn, and it seems like you could do that unintentionally, and you could also do it intentionally, right? To create bias on purpose.
Right.
So it's interesting.
So tell me one thing. After you all have like contributed your points, do you think that the data that you see somehow forms an opinion, forms a narrative, forms a stereotypical, perspective of a certain thing, place, or geography? Yes or no? All the yeses. Okay, so people who are all the no's, why don't you think so? It's okay, we can come to that later. Yeah. So, see, the purpose of this particular activity, the second section is to actually sort of go into the shoes of trainers who train data set and also who submit the pictures, who create those the images and the words and everything, which somehow which forms an opinion, the larger narrative, etc. etc. So what are we going to do here? I really want you all to. It was supposed to be a group activity. Can you make groups of 4? Can you just 1, 2, 3, or if you can come in front and all 4 of you can. Okay, so I think people are sitting on organically, so you hold every row.
And just take your devices out.
Yes.
We will require that.
Yes.
I hope all of you have internet on your phones.
So we'll leave. Yeah, is everyone a part of a group? So yeah, sorry, did someone say anything? No. Okay. So what are we going to do right now is that we're just going to open a phone, open Google. Little things will go a little bit granular, and we'll try to be a little critical of the images that pop up. Does everyone have a notebook to write their observations on? Do you need anything? We also post it, so Prakash is simply post it to to everybody. And feel free to take the color pen of your choice. Have fun.
You can make notes here. Just one note of what you observe. For you to write.
For all of these?
So start going granular, but start with bodies. And then
bodies.
yeah.
See, so basically right now we have 2 major buckets, bodies and community.
You can join this.
What we're going to do, we're going to search bodies first and see what are the results that pop up. Like I said, different things. And then we are going to enter subplots.
Do we have to write it as a group or individual?
So it just helps to have a group. And of course, you will have your individual responses. But the reason I went to form groups was many people will come with different observations, and each of the group I wanted to have like a certain prompt. So while bodies is a generic one.
Who's still making some of the observations? You are? Anyone else? Just note that we'll just resume again in 2 minutes. Alright, we'll start. These questions will be here, you can read them later as well. Folks?
And it's very Eurocentric. You don't see any representation of anything below the equator.
Right. But very close to it.
Yeah.
That's a very important observation. Okay. Anyone else?
Coming
What happened when you
coming to handsome body, it was like mostly men.
Yeah.
And with tall body,
Right.
full pump with steroids. And like they were like half naked, 70%. And coming to queer bodies, it was like just feminine features, you can see. Like just thin and purposes. And like when you come to feminist bodies, it was just art. There was no real representation. The art is diverse.
That was an imaginary.
Imaginary.
Yeah.
There was no real representation.
Right.
Can I say follow to this observation? In queer bodies, were there any brown skinned queer folks?
Mostly from global north.
Yeah, they were.
There were different shapes, sizes, and colors.
Yeah, there was.
There were? You got?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so
Also, when I search for queer bodies, I've seen privileged representation of black queer people.
Right. Can you tell me more?
Where two men of white color have put on black masks, and they are representing black art, which is so politically incorrect.
Yeah. Any more observations when you entered feminist bodies? What was the difference when you entered beautiful bodies and feminist bodies? Yeah.
Feminist bodies. Feminist bodies were shown to be more plus-sized women,
feminist bodies were shown to be more plus size women, old women, women who were more clad in clothes, I would say, which kind of showed that, I mean, thin people can't be feminists.
I didn't get any bodies only, I only got slogans. There were no bodies.
Beautiful bodies, both male and female bodies. In beautiful women bodies, there are mostly women. And there was no nudity at all.
Also, body
Filters are
positive.
there. Filters are there. People just generally and there was no nudity of the body. And in handsome bodies, there are beautiful male bodies without shirts. Female bodies, there were thin people, very thin people. They have some skin to bone kind of bodies I know. And feminist bodies again, women with lingering.
You were saying?
Yeah, in male bodies, mostly there are men male, not women.
And there were no trans
Right.
Also, body positivity and body love is only for feminist bodies, not for beautiful bodies.
Right. So when you just talk about bodies, so see, in order to be accepted in the mainstream narrative, which is the body. So the bodies is the larger puppet, right? But in order for you to represent, to see your representation, you have to a lot of prompts. You have to write specific words. Then only your image will show up, right? So I think there are a lot of other prompts also. But what I want to ask you now is that how long did it take you to reach to the desired result? To see yourself in these prompts. Did you see yourself in these prompts?
No. I've seen myself.
What prompt? Which prompt?
Whether it is queer bodies or feminist bodies.
Right. So it was still on the margins. It wasn't the main narrative that we saw, right? So whenever we search for any single prompt, if we just stick to the first word, right? Very simple, basic base word. So what happens is that one whitewashed narrative pops up. And if somebody were to see that those images and form an opinion, do you think it would be the right one? Would it cause alienation in who they are, between who they are and actually what's represented?
But that does not happen, I think, in Google. But that does not happen because Google works on page rank alone. If more number of hits are coming, it comes up on top.
But tell me one thing, Google also does this thing. So so wherever you are, it molds the results and presents it to the specific location. So if I'm sitting in India,
that's because of the DNSs. They're acting through the DNS server. That probably because of the whichever country location we have, it maps it only to those locations.
Did you try using a VPN and maybe search?
Right.
So what are the results?
Not here, but some other time.
What are the results like? I really want to try that and
So
see.
I want to watch some advertisements. I use VPN and watch other countries' advertisements.
Alright.
I was wondering if it has anything to do with where I've been, because my results were slightly different than the rest of my group, and I'm from the US, so is that learning based on, kind of my personal device?
Yeah.
Is that what the different locations are? Yes. Interesting.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Both our results were basically the same.
Wow.
Yeah.
So see, when we were also doing this activity, initially we were not prepared for all these observations, all these findings. Tata's search results were sometimes very different. My search results were very different. And then when we started looking at it, and then we started going more granular and everything, then we realized if we just enter the word body, single word, a lot of times it's a very mixed representation, but still we are not able to see ourselves in that, which means there's a gap, which means we need more perspectives, we need more representation, we need more data. But what kind of data, right? Okay. Yeah, so somebody said they were not able to see themselves in the prompts. So, would you want to read some of them? Yeah, sure. Because after this, I have one more very tiny activity based on the same thing. And I really wanted to see the results as well.
Trans representation or no people of color either. Another one under beautiful bodies fits modern beauty standards, mostly in beachwear bikinis. Feminist bodies where so-called ideal body has no place or breaking barriers. Then again, under beautiful bodies, there's slender, lean bodies. I think that's already been shared. Skinny, fair women, unrealistic standards, non-inclusion of non-binary bodies. I also wanted to ask this question to the room if they have, in any of their searches under any of these categories, they have seen any representation of disabled bodies.
No.
Not one?
No.
That's telling, right?
Say something.
And then there's somebody got both black and white bodies. Not sure if that includes other people of color. Most are models, influencers. Yes, influencers, celebrities will pop up way more than stock images that we come across. No rural or indigenous representation, very important. In fact, this brings to mind this entire fad when TikTok was still not banned in India, about how that made for a more diverse, democratic representation of all kinds of bodies and people, right, on that platform, more than any other global north big tech ever did. So then there's under handsome bodies, again, I think that's been like a, one train reflection for everyone, muscular men with bare chest. Then under handsome bodies, okay. Again, white European muscle, shirtless at the beach for some reason. Somebody's written for some reason. they're absolutely frustrated with again, queer bodies. Who has written this? There's urban and both rural queer bodies that they've come across. We can see village farms and corporate buildings infrastructure. Would anyone like to elaborate on coming across both rural representations of queer bodies? That's really great. It would obviously depend on your search results and what you've been interacting with. But yeah, if someone wants to share, I think somebody from that group shared this, if I'm not mistaken, but if you would like to.
Can you read the...
It's under queer bodies, it's written urban communities, rural. We can see village farms as well as corporate buildings and infrastructure.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
Yeah, who made that observation? Would you like to elaborate?
They're disowning the narrative.
That's my thing.
Okay, this is interesting. What's under feminist bodies? What's breakfast doing?
That was the community problem.
I didn't have anywhere to put it, so I just.
Yeah. So do you just Google breakfast?
Yeah, it was on the list.
Oh yes. Oh, right, under communities. Correct. Yes. So we were also trying to see, because whenever we Google breakfast, we either get an American breakfast spread or an English breakfast spread, and we never get like poha or whatever we have here, right? So since food is such an intrinsic way of looking at, how the differences are mapped online, we thought we'd just include breakfast. But thanks for trying that out. Okay, under feminist bodies or just bodies, I think somebody's gotten sexualized women's bodies, which is a problem, of course. Intersection of women, white women showed up, black women didn't show up, women who are fat and belly not shown, and women who are beautiful and slim. A lot of people got Bodies, the movie on Netflix, which we also did, and we were like, what do we do with this? We can't use this in any way. Again, handsome body, somebody feels like male bodies were objectified, which is absolutely valid. Thank you.
Alright, so you...
Makeover. Like makeover older men, that's what I have seen. Like, I don't know what to make out of it. I think you either... what do they say? You either make it much more revealing or you either degrade it or somewhat like that. That's what I've seen.
Yeah. No, I think one of our observations were also this, that when we use certain words, for example, handsome, it relates to a certain gender. Right. So when you talk about this word, there is a specific type of girl that you get. So beautiful females are beautiful, handsome men are handsome. And of course, when you enter queer bodies, sometimes the notion shift. So these are the little discrepancies in the annotation bit that we have to observe. So the second part of this activity is that try the same prompts but in your language. For example, in Bengali,
Sundar Shorir would be beautiful bodies.
Yeah, and what type of results
you just have to change the setting on your phone a little bit when you search. So search it in that language. Search it in your language. And you don't have to do all of them. Did you get anything?
What are you getting?
Poetry. So maybe they're just lifting the words and seeing where the words feature. Local products? Not global products.
So the point of actually doing this activity is to see the difference. So if you pay attention to it, internet has a language, right? And it's English. So if you don't know English, how are you going to see the results? What are you going to see what results are you going to see?
We work with those communities and we ask them to be empowered about, doing their own YouTube or Google voice searches, right? But if they enter it in their language and they're getting something so different from what's the reality, which is also biased. I'm saying, whatever you put is also biased, but they're not even getting that. They're getting something completely different. Yes, they're getting Hanumanji or Ganesh.
Yeah, or Ganesh.
For beautiful bodies.
Yeah.
So, just to show that again, the global south, global north divide again exists in this way as well.
Yeah, so about privilege, right? It exists here as well. And we as people, just like training data, these are very minute but very important points that we can keep in mind to actually make it really relevant and inclusive. Because it's not just responsible for showing up just like that. It's also responsible for shaping your thought, shaping your how you see yourself, and it just bridges a lot of the gap that we see in real life as well. Yeah. So when we did this activity, we also faced similar results. Like what was the dominant narrative, the presence and the lack of people with disabilities. So the most of the results, they were 0.1% representation of people with disabilities. And if it was, the kind of representation we saw was very, very sad, very low, we can't really take care of ourselves. And it wasn't a very empowered or real or happy chirpy version. So why was that so? That's an important question that we always have to keep in mind. Yeah, again, certain words were being associated with one gender. Inclusivity was on the margins. So, if you for example, we discussed, if you're entering bodies, you're seeing certain kind of results, right? But only when you enter feminist body, you see real images. So, why this gap? One of the takeaways of doing this activity was just to understand that how many stairs do we have to climb to be there among the mainstream? Or if we really want to be included, if we want to be inclusive and representational, do we always have to operate from the margins? That's a question that plays a very important role in when you're designing certain things. Okay, so last activity. Now we have discussed and shared our observations. What's there, what's not there. I think we have a fairly good idea of what's not there, what's missing. So what we wanted to do is that you can take sticky notes. You can use your cameras. and you can click pictures, write words that you think should be there to train the data set. So in this way, what we are doing is actually creating an alternate data set, or at least starting to create an alternate data set, which can actually be a stronger foundation of the results that we really want to see when it comes to certain topics. Wow, that's a nice background music. Yeah. So, would you like to start? Do you have sticky notes? We also have chart paper if anybody wants.
It can go into the making of a more inclusive data set right now. So, objects that are not global north centric, objects that should be there. Like, remember that concrete, jagged concrete piece of thing I showed you in that image, which clearly the annotator was not familiar with, or a gamla, which they tagged as a bucket. So even the word gamla, there should be representation of more of these realities in the data.
So what we do today, we'll just stick to the bodies prompt, and you can write as many words as you can think of for the same activity.
Just raise your hand if you need a pen and a sticky note. Just pen?
Can I ask a question?
So folks, for this reimagine activity, we have 5 to 7 minutes, and then we can have the question.
Just simple question. How can we remove the gender bias in any data? If there are more males or if there are more females, how can we remove this gender bias?
Yeah, that's a very important question. I think, I think it will come with a lot of, understanding of the context, understanding of that space, and how you're going to annotate gender, how you see gender also. So it has to be fluid, of course. But we also have to see what are the certain things that we associate with a certain gender, and we don't really need to box them, but we have to be really fluid with it. So maybe that could be one of the first steps that we can take to proceed.
What's an example of a gender bias in data you have encountered in your practice?
So if you type in something, generic query, generally they will be associating this. If the more data is pertaining to males, generally the data will be replaced with more bias towards males.
Correct. So as you saw in,
how to address this bias towards males or females? How can we address it?
Right. So if we, one bias that we saw right now is how the women have been represented in beautiful bodies. I want to see myself and my body type when I Google, right? Everybody wants to see their body type be tagged as a beautiful body. So I think the more that happens, I think that's one way, of course. But it's also by having more women in the room who are actually annotating data and working on it. So that, for instance, I'll give you an example, and no offense, but the mammogram experience has to come from lived experience at the end of the day. A man cannot be expected to know everything about a woman's body, right? So if there was a woman doing that annotation, it would have removed whatever bias there may have been in the system, is my opinion. So these are two ways for sure, how representation can go.
Yeah.
There is one observation that I have made recently. I have attended an interview which was conducted in our college. The company's name is Delta X, and there were 700 people that have attended the interview. The cutoff marks were 40, and I got 42 marks. I should have been the one who was supposed to go to the next level. But then I have seen girls who were selected, even though they have got 38 or 37 marks. and they have selected most of the women and not men. Why is that? I didn't understand.
Because it has got nothing to do with this.
No. I'm just asking
Yeah.
because there is a margin, right? Like women are getting hired much more than men.
That has got everything to do with affirmative action or reservations, which are there for a reason. So if you want to read up on what affirmative action for people who are historically marginalized, then you are free to do so, and maybe that would answer your question. I know that sucks, but it's there for a reason. The rule's there for a reason.
No, I was just asking just to know, not that it is related.
Yeah. So it's got to do with reservations, and any reservation is like that, right? There is an advantage that's given to people who are historically persecuted or oppressed. So if it's got to do with how you see who's historically persecuted and oppressed. We are all coming from a certain place of privilege. I think not to get into too much about it. So there's always that degree of difference or like a power imbalance between somebody else always. There's always going to be somebody who's more powerful than us, and there's always going to be somebody who's not as privileged as us. Anyone else? A question about this? I hope you liked the session. I hope you have will in your own practices just be more cognizant about the human aspect of artificial intelligence and question the technologies that you use every day. I think that would be the biggest takeaway for Anvesh and the work that we've been doing. The main reason we started doing this project was to not encourage people to avoid AI because of its harms. We have to engage and make it better in our own respective practices. So it's not just me, Anvesh working in the development space, or you working in the tech or annotation space. It's all of us coming together. Thanks. Yes, and you can reach out to us. You can just use our contacts and reach out to us.